Hey everybody, this is Roy and Amit Bhandari of TalkCondo.com, and today we are very lucky to be joined by Carmen Gerasolo, Head of Sales at Edenshaw Developments, to talk about what I think is probably one of the most exciting launches of the spring, of the summer, and it's Westport Condos in Port Credit. So, Carm, thank you very, very much for joining us and talking to us about this project.
Hey boys, hi guys. Yeah, thank you, no problem. Thanks for having me.
So the first thing I want to talk about is Edenshaw Developments. Again, in today's climate, I think more than ever, it's very, very important for investors and end users to be purchasing their condominiums, new condominiums from developers with a track record, and that's becoming more and more important than ever before. So talk to us a little bit about Edenshaw Developments, give us a little bit about your history and how you guys got to where you are today, and a little bit about more about Edenshaw.
Yeah, so the company's probably around 10 years now. One of the projects that you guys are probably familiar with is the Chaz in Yorkville.
Yeah, it was actually one of the first condo buildings we ever sold in.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So IBI Architecture, Ciccone Simone Interior Design, many awards. I think it won Community Build of the Condo Build of the Year at that time. So yeah, it was a great project. That's probably one that you guys are familiar with. We've done a couple of other projects down in Mississauga and in Toronto, and have probably around 1,000 units in our pipeline coming up just between South Mississauga and Toronto, which includes Westport, our newest condo. So the company's comprised of seasoned veteran development professionals, from construction to planning to architecture, and we managed to develop a strong relationship with all of the key development consultants, construction consultants, and trades out there, which is very important in this climate, to make sure that as a developer you have those strong relationships with the mechanical trades and the concrete trades and the foreman trades, and all of the pieces of the puzzle that make a building. It's so expensive. It's so busy out there. It's so competitive as it relates to the construction side, that having these relationships is very important. We have very, very strong, great relationships, which allows us to build these good quality buildings that are going to last for a very, very long time.
Amazing. You mentioned obviously the next building is Westport, and you mentioned one of the other projects. You've done some other stuff in Mississauga, and the one that immediately comes to mind is Tanu, which is sort of the sister project to Westport.
Yeah, the big sister, I guess you can say.
The big sister. And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And what I was going to say is that both of those are located in the Port Credit neighborhood.
Yeah,
this isn't your first rodeo.
Yeah, no, it's not our first rodeo. It's actually so Tanu is our first Port Credit development. It's located on Stave Bank, overlooking the Credit River, and there's some lake views as well over there. The principal of the company and myself, I grew up in Lauren Park, Port Credit area, and the principal of Edenshaw lives in Mineola, which is in Port Credit, not even a 5-minute walk from Tanu and Westport. So, we had a lot of pride in developing in this area. We not only live here, but our friends, our families all live here. So we want to make sure that whatever we stamp our name on is going to stand the test of time, be something that the community appreciates, because, we have to live with it just like everybody else does. So Tanu was really geared towards a gap in the market here in Port Credit, where there were empty nesters coming out of their large homes, needing a place to, wanting a place to settle down now that the kids are moved out, but still wanting to live in this community. I mean, majority of the purchasers are from Port Credit, Lauren Park, Oakville, from Mississauga primarily, or from the surrounding neighborhoods. They know this community and they jumped on it right away. So it's been a big success. The building's under construction. We're just out of the ground now. We're probably going to be, you'll see the first or second floor coming out in the next month or so. And there's barely any units left. But so Westport is just east of that.
Yeah.
not even a 5-minute walk east to here, Ontario, all along Park Street, right by the Port Credit Go Station, across the street actually from the Port Credit Go Station.
Awesome. Why don't we
Amazing.
actually
So,
jump
go
into
ahead.
why don't we just actually if we think why don't we jump into the Port Credit story itself now, because it's a big part of it. And what we've seen is that Port Credit and that surrounding pocket essentially is very much an aspirational neighborhood or an aspirational pocket. And the Port Credit neighborhood itself, it's almost like a brand, right? If you live in Port Credit, it's like its own identity, its own brand, right? And what we found, and kind of like what you were alluding to, what we found was that the neighborhood is screaming for high-rise development, because what we found was, at least from the Toronto MLS stats, is the rental stock is so low. Like if someone's looking to invest, they want somewhere where there is the potential to rent out the suite. But the rental stock here is so low. And as per the Toronto MLS, what we found was between Lawn Park, East and West Mineola, and Port Credit as a whole, there was only 15 listings.
Yeah.
Just 15 listings.
Yeah.
Now, the greater neighborhood is without question known for stunning high-end, low-rise homes. We also found, and it's not really surprised, that the entry point from a low-rise perspective was an average of $2 million. That's an average. And I just counted Port Credit, just the Port Credit stretch. If I included Lawn Park and East and West Mineola, it was higher. But that's just the Port Credit stretch. And the other high-rise aspect also surprised us, because the absolute cheapest unit currently available on the market was in the high sixes, and it went all the way up to the 2.7 million mark. So it just shows that there is this demand from a high-end perspective. So I guess what we wanted to find out was from Edenshaw's perspective, where is Westport being positioned? How do you see Westport being positioned within the greater community?
Yeah, so I mean, Tenu was a special building in that we knew there was a gap in the market. I mean, we sold the second most expensive condo in Mississauga ever, is a sub penthouse unit that was sold at Tenu in the over $3 million.
Right.
What we're finding, so again, I grew up in this neighborhood, so I have a very street level view of what's happening here. And a lot of what we're finding is that a lot of the people that kind of grew up in South Mississauga, Milton, Etobicoke, the west end of the city, let's say, the West GTA, they graduated university, they moved downtown, they started working downtown. They got into that, they got it through their 20s, getting into the late end of their 20s, 30s, getting into relationships, and they're just looking at maybe changing their lifestyle a little bit. The downtown scene, the King Street scene is maybe not that thing for them anymore. They're starting to start a family or getting more serious relationships. They're more comfortable with their work, and they're getting kind of pulled back to wanting to go down back to the West End. But at the same time, they need to be connected to the city and still have this feeling that they have this activity around them. So what's great about Port Credit is, like, I mean, you can see the city from the water, from the street front. Like you're always grounded by knowing where you are, which is awesome about Port Credit. When I go to some of those northern GTA communities, I kind of feel claustrophobic because I'm not close to the water, knowing that I can't just point out what the city is. But so with that said, I wouldn't venture to guess what the target market would be, in the sense that anything from the renters in their 20s that don't want to be downtown anymore, but could take the GO station to their office at Union or Liberty Village, would be probably more than interested in living here, to, young adults in their 30s, 40s, who are looking to start a family, want to be out of the city, and but still very much connected to it, will be interested in this. The price range is going to, it's there to meet a lot of the budgets that are out there comparatively to what's available. I mean, there isn't any real high rise. There isn't really many development going on in Port Credit. at the moment. So listings are just few and far between.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This is really creating that entry into that market. But I think it's great for anybody who really interested in living in nature, but very much connected to the city and that lifestyle, and still going to bars and restaurants, stuff like that. It takes 15 minutes by the GO station to get down to Union.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I think I wanted to hit on there. Number one was the GO station. Obviously, this site is steps to the GO station.
So unique.
Literally steps.
Yeah, it's very unique.
And the GO station is an interesting one because it's, like you said, 15, 20 minutes and you're downtown. But it's also going to be connected to the brand new Ontario LRT, which is currently being developed, which makes it really important as what we call an intermodal transit hub, which connects multiple. It's not just one line that goes through; it's multiple transit lines. And when we see that sort of intermodal hub, what generally happens is that there's a lot of development that happens around it. So we're in an area where we're already very desirable. We've already got all these shops along the strip, the restaurants, the coffee shops, the wine bars. You're already a waterfront community, which on its own is highly desirable. And then you throw on top of all this stuff, the intermodal transit hub that's going to bring all this future development to this neighborhood. And you start to see the pieces sort of fit into place, and why we really believe that this is, I said at the beginning, one of the best launches this spring, this summer, that I think investors are going to be able to jump on. I wanted you to talk a little bit about the GO station and also the strip. Like, I think the Port Credit Strip is, again, if you know it, it's amazing. I know it's, I've spent a lot of time there. But for those that aren't familiar with the strip, like, talk us through that, and then also give us a rundown on the importance, or where you see the importance of the GO in this whole picture.
Yeah, so I mean, an interesting stat that maybe it's not a stat, but I heard it from one of the commerce dinners we had with the mayor, the city Mississauga mayor, Bonnie Crombie, and she said that more people drive into Mississauga for work than they do out of Mississauga for work.
Interesting.
And the Ontario LRT is going to be one of a great infrastructure project that's going to connect, obviously, Mississauga to the city center and all of the northern communities within Mississauga a lot quicker, a lot easier. And obviously that LRT terminates right across the street from Westport. So from a connectivity standpoint, it's not just east and west along the water to the city and to Burlington and wherever else you're going, but also north through the core of Mississauga. So then, when you get into the waterfront part, there's a lot happening here. There's going to, again, the people that kind of grew up in Mississauga came out here know more or less what that local appeal is. I grew up rowing on the Credit River, so there's regattas going up and down the Credit River. There's sailboats always in the harbor and the pier. And, with that said, there's a lot of interest in people being down here. So I think if you look at the future from a development standpoint, there's going to be two big master plan communities that will straddle east and west side of Port Credit, which are not really in the core. They'll end up coming to Port Credit Strip, which is pretty much the Credit River east to here, Ontario. It's a 5-block strip of restaurants and bars. And it's a very active waterfront strip. So those two communities, once they develop, which were greenfield, brownfield parcels of land that were never developed before, will bring a new gentrification to otherwise underutilized land. And not just that, but literally right across the street from Westport in the Credit Marina, there's going to be future federal lands redevelopment where they'll bring in more retail and a newer, more open marina. So the marina life will be bigger than it already is. And what's even better than from a Westport perspective is we're the only one of the parcels, we're the only remaining parcel of land. I think there's maybe one more where you're allowed to go up 22 stories. So the building itself has 3 different steps. There's the podium, the midsection, and then there's the tower, which goes up 22 stories. Anything to the south of us is limited from a zoning perspective 15 stories. So you'll have this great waterfront view forever, overlooking the water. And the way that the lake turns from our rooftop terrace, you have awesome views of not only the water east and west, but of the city skyline as well. It's pretty cool.
Amazing.
That's incredible. I think we should talk a bit more about the mobility hub, because I think that's a huge part of this story. Because if anybody is interested, the address of the project is 28 Ann Street. So if they look at the proximity to the GO station, you're practically at the GO station. And we cannot emphasize enough as to how big of an impact it is being so close to that station. Because, and I like to put things into perspective here, because the train, the GO train will take you 27 to 29 minutes to get to Union Station. Now, if you're living at a stop for less than what it would cost to live in Toronto, and you're living in a highly affluent community, highly desirable community, so close to the lake, this site is so plugged in into the rest of the GTA, it's unbelievable. I want to put some other perspective onto it. I live just south of Yonge and Eglinton, and it takes me
longer to get to
my door.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, it takes me about 25 minutes from out my door to get to Union Station. So this is 4 or 5 minutes extra.
I would argue that we're
unbelievable. Maybe, possibly.
You know what? We should take a competition. You leave your house, I'll leave here. We'll see who gets down there quicker.
We can do that. Once it's ready, we'll do that. And then on top of that, you'll also have quick access to the downtown Mississauga on the Ontario LRT. And then you also have the My Way, the bus system as well, that you can have access to. And the other big aspect is, if you need to drive, you're right by the QEW as well. So in terms of a transit accessibility scenario, like this pocket, there's no, it's not by accident that this area was designated to be a mobility hub.
No.
Right? Because of its accessibility and because of its how well connected it is.
So you have direct train routes, and this is why I was saying it'll be quicker. During the weekdays, the Port Credit GO station direct to Union Station, no stops.
Right.
So that's 15 minutes. Yeah, I mean, we knew about this parcel of land for a couple of years now. The principal and I have been prospecting this area forever, and just understood that this would be a very important piece to acquire because of where we're going demographically with traffic and everything else, and how important it would be to be located at this mobility hub. So, I spent many years at Infrastructure Ontario when they worked with Metrolinx to actually look at all of their mobility hub plans, and I was part of that strategy writing from the provincial side. And Port Credit was the first case study they looked at from a mobility hub standpoint, understanding that the land is so valuable and that there's a major pull of population leaving from the station. So yeah, I mean, look, the reality is that traffic's not getting any better. We have parking in the building, obviously, a high ratio of parking in there. But for those people that are living, let's say, in Liberty Village or the west end of downtown Toronto, Queen West, even closer to Union, you still get that feel of being downtown. You have all the different parks. I mean, holy crap, going through COVID recently, being downtown. I mean, I grew up here. I still have a house in Lorne Park, but I also have a house in Little Italy at the top of Trinity Bellwoods Park. And it was a zombie apocalypse living in that, living in Toronto for the last 3 months. I literally spent all my time over COVID down here because at least it felt a little bit sane. You could go out, you were on the trail. There's awesome paths along the lake. There was so much more activity down here that it didn't feel so end of worldish out here.
Well, actually, that's something that needs to also be highlighted: the parks, trails, and the fact that you're a very, very short walk to the lake, which is incredible.
It was like being in,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say Muskoka, but almost had like a Niagara on the lake type feel.
Yeah, it's a very special location. And, you know, we could talk about Port Credit forever. It really is a special location. Like we said, the lakefront, the strip, the connectivity from the GO station. There's a lot to love about Port Credit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's switch gears and talk about Westport itself. So give us sort of the bird's eye view, the number of suites, the number of stories, what to expect from Westport Condos.
So the building, I think I mentioned earlier, is IBI Design. They're our lead architect, our architect on the project. Interior design was done by Ciccone Simone, both award-winning shops, and have great history working with Edenshaw in the past. We took I don't want to say it's a very luxurious building. Like the kitchens, for example, are all panelized appliances and made in like Italian designed kitchen cabinets, and the interiors are very, I want to say, modern but clean and cool lines. The building is 359 units, 22 stories in height. Again, there's a midsection and a tower section.
We can see it behind us.
Yeah,
Behind you.
I don't know how
behind you. Sir.
There's 15,000 square feet of amenities, which includes 24-hour concierge, gorgeous gym, fitness center, yoga. It's a very dog-friendly building with a dog run and dog spa at grade. Down on the I think it's around the 15th floor, we have our terrace, which overlooks the lake, and it has cabanas, pool loungers. That's not pool loungers, sorry, sun loungers. And it's all serviced by a barbecue pit and barbecues and a dining room and a sports bar, and there's just too much for me to remember.
Yeah.
So from an amenity standpoint, it's great. I know that on the ground floor too, there's a co-working environment that we took a lot of pride in, with people working remotely more and more.
Yeah.
And it's terrible to work out of your condo, especially if you're in the city. Here, you take your computer, go downstairs, and the co-working environment is very much like a hotel designed lobby, and it's a really cool place to kind of get to work and not have to worry about going into the office.
And then you've also got the retail aspect as well.
Yeah, there's a small retail component that we will probably set up primarily for like a coffee shop or something like that on the southern side of the building, which is down that way, which will, integrate nicely with the streetscape retail frontage and the entrance of the building.
Awesome. We just got some brand new renderings that were dropped a few days ago, and the suite interiors with you mentioned the kitchens already, but it's very, very sleek. One of the things that obviously stands out are the views. You already mentioned above a certain level that you're going to have protected views forever. So obviously they're going to be a highlight as well.
Yeah, go on, sorry.
No, I was just, and then obviously you mentioned the retail and having a coffee shop that will, again, speak to the neighborhood and the kind of things that this neighborhood that really wants. And that comes from, like you mentioned, being at the street level of this neighborhood and getting that firm understanding of what people in this neighborhood are really after.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, 35-year-olds, 30-year-olds, whoever, let's say you work downtown, in the downtown core is moving south. What I mean that is the downtown Bay Street core. So what used to be called downtown core or downtown center was Queen and Bay, let's say. But more and more, especially with the big consulting firms, tell us all these different companies are moving further south towards Union Station. So a lot of the employers who will now start including their work from home policies with COVID being a thing now, and who knows what that landscape will look like down the road. But pre-COVID days, the downtown core was naturally moving south with a lot of these big employers moving closer to the Union Station. So you wake up in the morning, get a coffee at the bottom of the building or at the GO station, jump up onto the train, you're downtown for work if that's where you are. You go north on the Huron-Ontario LRT if you're working by City Center, which is another core work. And then if you have to go west, you're easy to go west. So, you don't need your car, but if you have it, great. If you don't, you're good too.
So just to sort of wrap everything up, we talked about Edenshaw as a development team with a decade of experience with some great buildings
Well,
downtown.
I should interrupt you. More than a decade years.
More than a decade of experience.
The company's been around. Principals responsible for building Toronto's biggest master plan community. So there's
Awesome.
there's many decades of experience here.
Awesome. So many decades of experience. It's a project that I think is in one of the best locations in the GTA. It's very affluent, very desirable. Amit called it aspirational, which I love that word for Port Credit. But it's also an area that is, we're going to see a ton of growth coming because of the growth of the mobility hub, the connection of the Ontario LRT line. You mentioned yourself, we've got two really underutilized parcels either side that are going to get developed and bring all this new development and growth to the area. So I think that makes it a really exciting location. Then we talked about Westport itself, great building with amazing finishes in the suites, 15,000 square feet of amenities, amazing views, amazing kitchens, an amazing retail space on the ground that's going to speak to the neighborhood. Is there anything that we missed that you think we should have highlighted? Or
I mean, you got to get down here. It's funny because the restaurants are starting to open up now. I don't know what it's like up in where you guys are at, but the patios are starting to open up, and this place has been packed ever since. So there's a really cool vibrancy here in the summertime. Come down. There's a lot of festivals and stuff. Take a look at what's going on. You have to feel it and touch it to understand it if you don't already know
100%
what the neighborhood's all about.
Amazing. Well, we're really excited. I think our investors are really excited. If our clients are interested in buying at Westport, what do they have to do?
They have to call you guys. I mean, for your investors, you mentioned, I got to say this now because you reminded me, there's 1% vacancy rate in Toronto, in Port Credit?
Yeah.
And a lot of,
it's very low.
This is a very important point. All of the apartment buildings that are in Port Credit, those tenants have never left. So there's never any units that come up for rent. It's really only the development of new condos, of which this is going to be the third, because is not going to have many rentals. Those are primarily people that are going to live there. To get here, unless you want to buy a home from a rental perspective and therefore investment perspective, this will be a very highly desirable place to rent as well. So if you have those investor clients or you have those people that are looking to live here, you guys have, I believe, first access into our building. So work with it and give you guys a call, and we'll take care of everybody.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Carm. I really appreciate your time.